longer I work in churches, the more convinced I become that one of the greatest threats to the effectiveness of ministry is mistaking our human point of view as being one and the same as God's. An interesting exchange occurs in the Bible between Jesus and his close friend Peter. Jesus is explaining to his followers that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer at the hands of the religious leaders there. And he tells them that this suffering would culminate in his ultimate death sentence, but that he would also raise to life again on the third day. Now, Peter is greatly distressed at hearing about Jesus' intentions to surrender to these evil plans of the religious leaders in Jerusalem, and he tries to talk sense into his friend Jesus. And I'm sure Peter is speaking out of his love and concern for his friend's well-being, and he probably was even fully convinced that he was doing the right thing. But Jesus' reply is surprising and stern. Jesus says, "Get away from me, Satan. You are a dangerous trap to me. You are seeing things merely from a human point of view, not from God's." Jesus makes a very strong distinction here. The human point of view often doesn't line up with God's. So how can we know the difference? Because I believe that knowing the difference is vital to living the life God gave us as He planned it. Well, Jesus gives us insight into this by explaining, "If any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross, and follow me." The cross symbolizes sacrifice. And Jesus knew that when he arrived in Jerusalem, that the religious leaders there were going to put him to death by nailing him to a cross. So why would Jesus willingly submit to this? This seems like a crazy sacrifice. The answer to this can only be fully understood with the help of the Holy Spirit. But in short, God's plan of defeating sin and death forever required the ultimate sacrifice that only He Himself could make. God's perfect law decrees that the wages of sin is death, and not wanting humankind to face death for their own sin, which would result in eternal separation from God, God came to earth as the man Jesus, who would lay down His life to die in the place of sinners like me and you. Jesus was arrested, charged, and sentenced to death for crimes He didn't commit. The crimes were ours, the crimes of fallen humanity. But on our behalf, He submitted and willingly endured unspeakable suffering so that you and I wouldn't have to, because He loves us more than we could ever know. And He made a way so that we could be joined with Him forever, rather than be separated. An important key to differentiating the human point of view from God's is loving sacrifice. And when considering this in your own situations, ask yourself, is my point of view considering the needs of others before my own? And being completely honest with yourself, consider this. Does your point of view cause you to get bitter or complain about your loss of preference or comfort? Or does it cause you to celebrate as you see the needs of another being met? Is your innate response one that says, "What about me?" Or is it one that says, "What about them?" Jesus set the example that we are to follow, and it's one of sacrificial love. Because He gave up the splendor of heaven by coming to earth so that we could have access to it by living life with Jesus. And the enemy of God's point of view is one of selfishness and pride. And it's human nature to think of ourselves first. And only with God's help are we able to recognize our innate selfishness and then sacrifice our personal wants for the needs of others. But that is Jesus' example and His expectation for us. As you move forward from here, don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. And as you do this, watch how things change around you for the better. And I wonder how better off our churches, communities, our families and social circles would be if we could truly grab a hold of this beautiful command. It would change everything. I know it.